I'm grateful to the justices for moving the nation closer to a day when students' race isn't used at all in college admissions. Of course, we're happy with it, but they gave us everything that we asked for. And I'm very confident that UT won't be able to use race in the future.
Supreme Court today ordering lower courts to take another look at affirmative action, albeit under a stricter standard. The New York Times called the decision, quote, simultaneously modest and significant. The case, Fisher versus the University of Texas, it came out of a lawsuit filed by a white woman, you see her there, Abigail Fisher, who said the University of Texas had denied her admission solely because of the color of her skin. The Supreme Court allowed affirmative action to survive, but imposed a tough legal standard, ruling that schools have to prove there are, quote, no workable race-neutral alternatives to achieve diversity on campus. And for now, Texas program and other affirmative action programs, they can continue without changes. And Justice Kennedy, writing for the majority, said that courts reviewing affirmative action cases must, and I'm quoting here, verify that it is necessary for a university to use race to achieve the educational benefits of diversity. Standard, he said, requires a, quote, careful judicial inquiry into whether a university could achieve that kind of diversity without using racial classifications. All right, translate the legalese for us, Mark, here. Did they take a dodge here, or what changed because of their ruling?
You know, I've never understood why they took the case to begin with, because in the question presented in the cert petitions, which are the papers presented to the court to get them to take the case, nobody has ever asked the court to overrule Bakke or to overrule Grutter or to overrule the existing framework for determining affirmative action based claims. So this is a routine exercise in error correction by the Supreme Court, just to correct a wrong standard that was used by the
So what was modest and what was significant?
I don't know what's significant about it, to tell you the truth. They just kicked it back and said, apply the right legal standard, which is the same standard that we've articulated in all of our prior cases. So I don't get why they took the case. I've never understood it, given the relief that was requested and given the decision that was issued.
Let's take the law out of it for a second. Let's talk the practicality of it. Dominic, make a case why a university should take race into account to try and have diversity on campus, if it means like that young lady who had better grades than, let's say, the African-American applicant in this case. The white girl didn't get in, the black girl did.
Right. Okay, let me stick to the facts and try and answer your question, and try not to get excited. I'm going to try not to, because out of all the students, the University of Texas, right? Out of all the thousands of students that go there, out of all the thousands, she didn't get in because a black applicant took her spot. Out of the thousands of students, come on, that's scapegoating. But that young lady we're looking at, right, she's being used for someone's agenda. But okay, let's look at the question that you asked me. Stick to the facts, Mr. Carter. Bottom line, if we don't have this, do you really think we'll have diversity on any campus in America? Just look at what happens. Are blacks equally represented on any college campus in America? And the only one I could think of is City College, located in the middle of Harlem. And that is even changing now. So on what campus?
The Constitution doesn't guarantee a result, Dominic.
Okay, but we're not talking about what the Constitution guarantees.
Sure we are.
Richard asked me to make a case. And my case is simple. No matter how qualified you are as a black student, unless you are a blue chip, best of the best of the best, of the best of the best of the best, you're not going to get in. Without affirmative action, I would have never have gone to college. I attended the State University of New York.
Here's what's so significant about the case. The Supreme Court basically in Bollinger, which is the affirm here, basically says affirmative action programs are not a long-term solution. We hope in 25 years that there will be no race-based consideration. So that's what's so significant about this case, is the Supreme Court is leaving the door open for another challenge in the future for the affirmative action to come back. So we're going to see this issue come back, and I think schools should now try to decide how are they going to.
Let me do a math equation for you, Rich, and tell me where the line is. Let's say a state, I'm going to round this up, has a 10%, it's a state university, okay, public university, they've got a 10% African-American population. On the campus, however, they have a 3% representation with blacks. Should they try to make the student body reflective of the state of which they're the university of?
Well, they're not allowed to do that.
No, they're not allowed, but they're putting in programs where they're putting in certain preferences. And race is one
to
of them.
achieve the goal of diversity, and race is used in service, ostensibly, of the goal of diversity. They're not allowed under any existing
They
Supreme
can't do
Court.
a
do a quota.
Right.
Right.
But I'm trying to say, if there is a marketable difference where there's a lack of diversity in a campus, especially in a state that is diverse by nature.
They have the opportunity to follow the Bollinger case, which is making race one of many factors in determining
And do you
whether or
think
not
they should?
If we've
Absolutely,
gotten
they should.
the Republican
Yes.
Party to agree that it's at least one factor, take the victory and run.
Well, listen,
Okay,
I
because
served in the military. The military, in the Bollinger case, wrote an amicus brief, a friend of the court, saying we support the opportunity to make the armed services diverse. We think college campuses should do it too. It's very important to have that diversity because it's part of the overall educational experience. But there comes a point in time where we've got to say we don't need this anymore, and that's the point in time that we all look forward to. And that,
When is that time?
That, according to the Supreme Court, is 2 decades away.
Well, here's a prediction. That time period, we'll all be dead and gone before it comes.
Wait, I'm 35.
When
Don't
you
kill me
have,
off.
like I said, we'll all
Very
be
early.
we'll all be dead and in the ground before that day of full diversity
The
comes.
heart of the phoniness of this dispute is that the people who say race should not be considered are somehow assuming that there is some objective way, grades or test scores or interviews,
Class.
whatever it may be, that allows you to pick who's really qualified. That's
How
nonsense.
else do you have standards, though?
You have
Look,
a variety of things.
here's what-
and you know what? In the end, it's intuitive. There are lots of people who don't do well in high school who will do very well in college.
Go on,
Einstein
Brother Brodsky.
and Snowden
Go on, Brother
went
Brodsky.
on to.
what are you doing?
You're doing good.
And Bill
Snowden.
Gates was a
Right.
college dropout. But ultimately, there is a factor where you can look at classes and whether or not somebody grew up in poverty, came from a single parenthood. That's going to lump in some minorities there. So there is another way to look at it rather than just race. You can look at
But how will you know
their
when you have class
economic
diversity? I mean, all of the
economic
parameters-
disadvantage background.
All of these parameters that you set up, as soon as we know that we have the diversity that we're looking for, but when is that exactly? When everybody
Well,
comes
let me
from
ask
a...
you something, Andrew. And I know we got to go to break. You and Richard apply in the same class. Your GPA in high school is 0.2 of a point higher than his, and you get 100 more in your SATs than Richard. But he gets in because the college wants more diversity. Are you mad, or do you understand?
Well, first of all, how am I going to know that the college wants more diversity? And second of all, I don't know what he's bringing to the table in terms of his skills, his
How do you
experiences.
know he would have gotten in at the expense of him? See, how can we make this is
Well,
what
I'll be fair to you.
end of the day,
Texas, in this case, there was little debate. In this particular case, they were clear, okay, as to who they let in. If I believe, and I might have the facts wrong, correct me, Mark, this was now after the initial acceptance. This came in the last wave where they're filling out the class. So there was no debate that these two applicants, which were very close, but these two applicants that came down to these two
So why can't we compare that young lady to one of the first applicants that was already
Here's the thing.
accepted?
If Abigail would have graduated top 10% of her high school, she would have automatically got in.
Thank you.
That's not, you're letting him off the hook. What he said is 2 points on 2/10 of a point on your GPA and better test scores. That's because he believes that test scores and GPA are valid and other things are not. He's wrong.
Richard
Right,
is.
no, I agree.
not the only
I'm
prediction, for
I'm
sure.
about to faint, but Richard is very correct on his assessment.
I'd like to see you faint.
And that's why they have these programs, Richard. Because kids, you gotta look at the other qualifications
There is
for
a
them to get in.
Let me give
interest
you an example from my own
to
life
do
in law
this.
school, right? Grades, good. LSAT scores, good.
Charming. Yeah.
No, well. Waitlisted at NYU Law School, in early at Northwestern Law School. Why? Just another New York aspirant lawyer here for NYU, a little bit of a fish out of water out of Northwestern. They wanted geographic diversity in the class.
Yep.
I'm appealing to Northwestern, not so appealing to NYU.
Where'd you end up going?
To Northwestern. So that's where they
You have to
moved
give
back
them
to
flexibility.
Keep our
You have to
debate
give the
going
schools
online. Go to Facebook and Twitter. Sound off. Affirmative
Chicago
action.
wasn't
Do you think it's
attractive?
leveling the playing field or reverse discrimination? Up next here, we're going to talk about the trial that just got underway today, and that had to do with the man on your screen, Mr. Zimmerman. We're going to have truly bizarre opening arguments and what that may foretell here going forward. Stay with us.